Tickets are now on sale for Rebels of Disclosure 2025, May 12th through the 15th in Grafton, Illinois at the beautiful Pier Marquette Lodge and Conference Center. Make sure you take advantage of the early bird specials before Black Friday. This will be a 4-day event with 12 speakers covering topics such as ET contact, experiencer testimonies, lost history, secret space programs, time travel, Illuminati, parallel realities, and so much more. Visit journeytotruth.online for more details. Make sure to grab your ticket today before the early bird special ends on Black Friday. We hope to see you there.
That's no moon. It's a space station.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Just a quick reminder, tickets are on sale for our conference. You probably just watched a little promo, but I just want to remind everybody to take advantage of the early bird sale before Black Friday. It's a great deal. And the on-site lodging is sold out, as it does sell out every year, but don't let that deter you from coming to the conference. You can still camp on site, Airbnbs, hotels, all the above, or even find a roommate and room with somebody in the lodge itself. But all the information is available at journeytotruth.online. And if anyone's looking to go to South Dakota next month in November 9th through the 11th, I'll be speaking at the Star Knowledge Conference. I'm really excited about that. Tickets are still available, and that link is below in the description. So without wasting any more time, today's guest is Miles Johnston. He's the founder of the Basis Project. It's like an independent research project. He started it in 1994, and he's kind of been paving the way a long time, disclosing this stuff. And he was one of the people that interviewed Max Spiers a lot in the early days. And he was actually, I think you were present for Max Spiers' passing, if I'm correct.
I was the one who was contacted about it from the Polish. And I'd just been speaking at Kerry Cassidy's, him, a very good friend of Kerry Cassidy. And she had her annual conference in England in a really wonderful place in East London. It's Cloud's house, actually. Passing Clouds. And it was good fun that. But I just finished doing my presentation, and I got this message on the phone, Max is dead. And then I got a second one, Max is dead. Because two of the key people who were involved with that were a couple of ladies, one from Switzerland, one from the blonde girl from Warsaw. And she was actually fronting for Stuart Swerdlow, which is why Stuart Swerdlow was in Warsaw. I think it was Warsaw. And they were dealing with this German publisher lady, very attractive, very nice lady. And she was going to publish a lot of the stuff that of the Basis Project. But, my stuff's long form anyway, but that's another thing. So she was a lady that Max was staying with. So he died at, I think, 4:00. Now, the point about this is he died the second time, and then that's a whole different ball game. And then I got a message from this other lady where they were going to try and revive him. And so I'd been selling these books. I'd sold out of these books by John Irwin. And John Irwin is one of the first publicly known, what we would call, and it's completely wrong, super soldiers. So I needed to get back to get a new supply of books. And strangely, at this time, Stuart, I think, whoever runs his website, put a message out saying there is a British researcher who has got the naive or other aspirations of trying to revive Max, which meant that Stuart knew that Max was dead. And they were trying to revive him. So that didn't happen. And by the time I got back, which was about 10 o'clock that night, so that would have been 4 hours later, he was definitely dead then. It didn't work. But the fact that they were trying to revive him and had a potential means of doing so sort of could be a subject to talk about operating warfare beyond death, that kind of thing. Because that's what happened with John Irwin way back in 1957. So anyway, Max didn't make it, and one of the ladies concerned, I had a discussion with later, one of the Polish people. She was one of the group trying to bring him back. And she then explained what happened and what she was personally involved with going to retrieve him. And that's another thing. So that's a sort of short, long, very winded.
Right. Right. So, I mean, I guess we can use this as a, kicking off point for the conversation, because why would they want to go after somebody like that? He was involved in a program, Project Oak Tree, where they were essentially a breeding program where they had surrogate mothers, but it was these children were being born underground in a military base and into like sort of a super soldier program. And I know that, that branches out into so many different areas, but maybe you could give like your 40,000 foot view about like what's happening there and what's actually like the reality.
Well, the bottom line is I've been looking at the UFO thing since I've been about 5. And clearly I'm in the program. I'm in some kind of a program, but you don't spend your entire life doing this. So you don't have a whole lot of people trying to pump you off and all that sort of stuff. But the bottom line is cutting to the chase. 1994, I was involved with a brilliant researcher called Lisa McKenna Williams, and she had met a bloke in her research thing in East London. And he was had a story about being a British in a security guard in a British base in Berkshire where they were making aliens.
Mm.
So this was the first time that, and this all happened. Also, I mean, this sort of was happening at the same time the X-Files had just started to come out, and the kind of stuff that he was talking about was sort of very similar to that. And also, a lot of the stuff that he was talking about was almost identical to the kind of stuff that drawings and stuff that came out on Dulce, i.e. breeding chambers. I think one of my mugs and one of my logos is actually stage 2 of what they called a programmed generated life form. So there was another source of information which I have phone calls with people, and then they said, oh, yeah, well, we were making these generated life forms in one of the British bases just near Stonehenge, Boscombe Down and Porton Down. Porton Down is one of the main labs. And she said that for the lunar base. So Britain was making program generated life forms which could be controlled for the British lunar base. Oh, that's Tim Refat. Oh, and he's brilliant, Tim. So suddenly we've gone from us making aliens under a guidance from the reptilians and the Greys. And it turns out that the Nazis were doing these sort of things way back in World War II. And the British found the labs that they were doing that in 1944, just before the close of the war in Europe. So now we've got aliens being made in German bases, 1944. So the whole thing is just boom, boom, boom back. And we're making it in conjunction and agreement with a whole bunch of other aliens. And the Nazis are involved, the Russians are involved in the British base, the Americans are there, Canadians, so suddenly there's a whole pile of people involving British defence in a little sleepy village in Berkshire, just West London, and are making aliens.
Yeah.
And the thing which really, when I interviewed Barry and Lisa, the thing which clinched it for me was the fact that it wasn't the fact that we got aliens and whatever it is. It was the backstabbing, duplicitous, double, triple crossing that everybody was doing on everybody else, which sold the whole thing. Because anybody who runs a government department, who needs an enemy when you've got civil servants and government departments who hate each other and compete each other so much that they're stabbing each other in the back, slitting each other's throats. And that's just normal human behavior in the civil service.
Right.
Don't talk about the BBC.
Right. And so, I mean, obviously, and we kind of understand that from doing our own research, that's how you even make it, for one, in the shadow government. Like, you're always constantly, your head's on a swivel, and you step on the backs of your fellow man to build yourself up, and you don't give a shit what happens to them. And so you said they were creating aliens, right? Breeding aliens, but they were
making grades under license from the reptilians.
Okay.
And now, Elena Danan's come along and stuck a whole lot more detail onto this, but a lot of her work, which she explains, is based on the Russian KGB alien encyclopedia that was, I think, founded in the mid-50s.
Right. Yep.
So the Russians had a manual to give to their soldiers about what to do if you meet one of these.
Right.
Right. And I've got 5 or 6 witnesses who, when she went through Elena's book, and again, note when Elena's book came out during the COVID thing, a lot of this all changed. Literally, can you even say COVID?
Right.
So suddenly a whole lot of things are happening, and when do these things happen? That was another Tim Reefat. By the way. Oh, I'm not going to say fucktard either. That's a public school thing, so we can say it in public school, so it's okay in America. Okay,
right.
That's you see, a normal person like you. Are you normal?
No.
No.
What is normal? Right.
Would say retard. That's the thing they say in public school. You're a retard or a spastic. These are very insulting and not very nice terms, but that's the way they say things. So when you're calling somebody who's in the civil service or in that kind of background, and you're calling them a fucktard, it means you're really insulting them in a way that they understand really what you're talking about, which is why Tim would use that term.
Right.
Anyway, where are we? So the point is that the other thing that we did, I used to talk to Nick Pope when he was actually in the Ministry of Defence, because I was because I've been involved with this before you were born. That's a Belfast. You were born, right?
Right.
Mid-80s.
So the point is that I was a regional investigations coordinator. I get on the radio and I'll be talking about this on the BBC, and I'd say I'm a regional investigations coordinator for the British Unidentified Flying Objects Research Association in Northern Ireland. And by the time you said that, okay, that's enough. Over. Goodbye. So I've been doing this a while, and the fact that I managed it, when I was in 5th grade or 5th form, I got double page spreads on UFOs in the local newspapers in Northern Ireland, Belfast. And you don't get that kind of coverage because you're just at school and you're wearing your school uniform, and when you look at back on it, there must have been a reason for that. Why did that go? Why was that in the papers? So that's basically it. But the point is, Nick Pope at the time, and we're talking early 90s now, he sent me a letter saying UFOs are of no defense significance, right? So obviously, normally people would say, UFOs to defense significance, nothing to worry about. Obviously, they're irrelevant and nothing's happening because they're of no defense significance. Or the reasons why they're of no defense significance is because they're in bed with each other, stabbing each other back, and they're working in bases in the middle of a countryside in Berkshire.
Right.
And all over the place.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's what, and this is one of the things I do agree with Stephen Greer, is like UFO, the term UFO is a lie, the term itself, unidentified. He's like, they're not unidentified. They know exactly what they are. And they're not flying like we think of flying. They're using a completely different technology. So he says whenever they tell you either it's a threat or it's of no significance or it doesn't exist, those are all lies, because they know exactly what they are. Like you said, they're in bed with them, or at least a lot of these negative ones are now.
Well, no, actually, they don't tell you lies. That's the point about that statement from Nick Pope. They didn't tell you a lie. You just thought of it from the wrong angle.
It's deception, though, still.
Right.
Right. It's manipulation.
Well, I think that's too strong a word. You're being very unfair to Her Majesty's government, His
Right.
Majesty's government, or whatever he is.
Right.
You're just misunderstanding things from the wrong viewpoint.
Right.
And this is why I'm here in crop circle country, where they make crop circles. And that's near Stonehenge. And beside Stonehenge, there's a couple of big military bases, and all around the place, Stonehenge, about half a dozen of these big military bases. Oh, nothing going on here.
Nothing to see here. Right.
Nothing to see here. Oh,
don't worry about it. Right.
So, do you
that's
think
all good fun.
Do you think the human cloning, where does that come in? Because, if they were making the Greys, they had the ability to clone humans, and that's a big issue right now as well. And we're getting disclosures about it, but what have you come across in your research?
Yeah, well, that's another thing. Have you heard of James Casbolt?
Oh, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
He was in jail just down the road from here. That's a coincidence. That's another Tim Reef fact. Why would he be so close to Wiltshire and those bases? And hey, Miles is just up the road. I used to go down and see him until one day they wouldn't let me in, and then somebody did let me in, and he was then taken away, not allowed to be out. And recently, just for news on James, he actually started to run for election. He decided to be a meek and mild-mannered person hiding out of public sight by going for an election for a local party in Cornwall. And Cornwall's a bit like Wales or Scotland. It's sort of got its own independence. It wants to have its own independence and language and stuff. So the initials of that local independent party that they decided to have, this is for a local council, very local council. So James has popped up, photographed for the first time since he was released into secure custody and told to stay away from the public and domain or not be seen. And now he's photographed with a local councillor standing for election, and the initials of that party are MK.
Of course.
Well, there's nothing suspicious about that. It's just a local political party.
Yeah, I mean, that's like
wow.
MK Ultra 101. I mean, that's how you keep someone silent. You keep them in a position where you can control them.
So that lasted about a week or two, and then somebody did, that dreadful man. This is a political party full of Masons. We had no idea that he'd been in jail, and it's a big shock to us. We can't possibly have this type of person represent our party. Meanwhile, the message is out there, MK, James, hello. And he sang, he did sing, they did a pop video on him in 2022. And it's about the lioness off the coast of Cornwall, where there were counties which were then submerged. And there's a whole lot of ancient stones and things the whole way off the coast of England. Cornwall, and that was a pretty well put together video, and it was done by a local company in Cornwall, which was really very good. He actually could sing as well. It was good fun. And then they made his eyes turn black. Whoa! So you're meant to be scared. Are you not scared? You're meant to be. Oh God! So they made his eyes black. Whoa.
Right.
And of course, that is connections with some of the stuff he was doing in jail, connecting with some kind of demonic entities, because that was his path just before it all failed for him, and he was on to go in to the dark side. So we'll have to see how that pans out. But that is connected with Max. And I've just received a letter from somebody in Brazil to contact Max's mother. And they're talking about a similar Brazilian Max Spiers, who obviously probably was bumped off. And it's interesting that that's just happened in the last couple of days. Now, none of this stuff happens by coincidence. And that's one of the things you've got to watch for is it's not necessarily what the subject is it's who raises it and where does it come from,
Right.
and that gives you little feelers to stuff.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we know that happens. Absolutely.
I have a question real quick. Why do you think they chose to take out Max when they did and not sooner? Because he had been speaking for years before that. Why do you think they chose that time? And
Well, it turns out that okay, you've got Stuart Sverdlow in there, and I think Stuart's very, very switched on. He did a very good presentation at the International UFO Congress, roughly 2000. He was saying a lot of very, very sharp stuff. So let's have. And I did interview him in London, and he's plays a lot of games on his podcast or whatever it is with his wife. That's good fun watching that.
Mm-hmm.
But we got the when they brought me over with Harold Couch Vela, and I did the previous, I think the spring, the one of the about 6 months to, or maybe 8 months, whatever. I was over there in Poland with Harold Couch Vela and spoke with those ladies, and an awful lot of stuff was involved with that in the background. And it's good fun. It's good fun when you go to these places. You know, you literally have the guys in the coats, you know, being a normal person, you know.
Right.
So it was all good fun, and Warsaw was brilliant, and they've gone through hell in Poland. You know, everything they've had has been destroyed and rebuilt.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they've had a hell of a thing. And but so it was very interesting, and I had a long chat with the German publisher, and that was all just to set the scene. Everybody smiling at each other, very nice and very polite. So basically, that was to get Max over to a place former occupied by the Nazis and former occupied by the Russians. Nothing really happening here, is there? So the bottom line was that the purpose with Max was to, okay, spinning back to John Irwin. John Irwin, in order to train him, two things, right? John Irwin, he comes from north of England, and that's Newcastle. That's Newcastle, okay. And he explained that his mother left the family home in 1939 and disappeared. Her husband was absolutely mortified. He put adverts in the papers, where have you seen this lady and all that. So, you know, his husband, where's my wife gone, you know? So about 3 months later, she turns up back home. Oh, she's pregnant. Naturally, her husband was a bit miffed about that. She was pregnant with John Irwin. And 17 years later, in 1957, John Irwin qualifies for national service. And his take on this is, because I don't smoke and I don't drink, I'm obviously a very fit and uncontaminated young man. And so that would qualify me to go into this special fighting group called the 16. I don't think it quite works like that. The point is, in 1939, where did his mother go to give birth to somebody who's got special fighting techniques, special DNA?
Right.
So what happened with him in 1957 was, when he first joined the army, the plane developed. He's flying to the Middle East. There was a lot of problems going on with Lebanon. This is just when Lebanon was a really nice place, really civilized place. A lot of action happening there. A lot of Russian stuff going on in the Middle East. A lot of activity. So the Brits were flying soldiers over there. So he just joined up. And the plane developed a bit of a problem. So I think he lands in Cyprus. I think it's Cyprus. And so they're stuck there. Then he's given orders to go take this truck and go to this road, and that's your orders, and you follow your orders. So he takes a truck at the middle of nowhere, parks it in a large hangar shed place, And this soldier comes towards him and says, "Hello, how are you doing?" And very soon after that, there's a very pale officer, very, very white skin, meets him and has a chat with him, and he's playing with a coin, and that's it. Irwin is under. He's hypnotized in some way, and 3 days of extremely advanced fighting techniques are programmed into him. He's actually taken one step beyond death, and his book is one step beyond the 16. So now we're talking about taking soldiers and taking his bioenergetic field one step beyond death and training him in special fighting techniques. And then they put him back, wake him up, bring his conscious mind back online. So then his final day of training was so he knew there's no point having all this secret stuff inside you if your conscious mind can't access it. So that was the final day of training. So he's brought online and he's given this special fighting technique, which is called the machine. So he has that reflex action, extremely powerful fighting techniques where if you are to the extent that if you were to teach this to any normal individual group, somebody would kill you very quickly, but they will not allow this type of technique out on the gangland circuit and beyond that. So we're already now dealing 1957 with a process involving a very pale-looking individual. You might think tall white, you might think Pleiadian, and that's embedded with the British military. And who are they fighting in the Middle East? They're fighting the kind of people which are putting us right now in deadly peril. And so the British had a secret team embedded within the British Army, but not necessarily receiving orders from the British, from a cabinet office, so to speak. And they went in and they essentially went through with special forces. They fought in groups of 4 and they were taking out Russians. They were doing a whole pile of stuff, which is really advanced, bumping people off. Very, very, there's a whole lot of different fighting techniques there, bumping people off, getting away with it, escaping out of bases with stuff because they were after a bunch of data banks, which were ancient data banks, large things about this size, and they looked like a crystal type of data bank with little nodules on them, and they contained immense amounts of information, and they were successful in getting that, and they stole them from a Bilderberger type meeting at the end, near the end of their national service, about 1959. And just before they went into this base in the Middle East, these 2 flying saucers take off. They look a bit battered. So those flying saucers are dealing with whoever was in that base. Irwin's team wiped them out, got these data banks, and they were able to test them, and they lit up and gave all sorts of information involving all sorts of portal type technology. And the purposes of these things were to control gateways and interdimensional portals so that the physical part that you come into this domain 3D, which drifts about and continental shift and all that, they all wander about. The idea was that would link in with the actual gate. So the British got that 1959, and so we're now dealing with a level of advanced technology way back in the middle of the 50s, going one step beyond death. And so the level of where we're playing now is interdimensional. The megaliths, whoever put the megaliths up, we're dealing with interdimensional technologies.
Right.
Those things are just not sitting there. They're highly advanced, and this brings in Stonehenge.
So where does Max Spiers come along? Because
so that meant in 1950, we're talking 70 years ago. So when the British trained James Casbolt, Max Spiers, Matt Todd, Sarah Adams, Haley, all the names you've heard and an awful lot more were trained in Burnworthy Manor, which is in Dorset, I think, near Taunton. They were trained in a lot of these fighting techniques. And for instance, Dave Marrow, who I interviewed about late 2010, he explained about hulking out and about jumping into other realms and hulking out like the super soldiers, the Supermen and stuff.
Right.
So, but the problem was, and we got this info from Tim, that the American and British super soldier technique was flawed. The recipe was flawed. Somebody got in to do the training and it wouldn't necessarily work. And so effectively that whole thing sort of gummed up. And so that essentially was why Max was taken in Warsaw. And they decided they wanted to get access to his primary programming, the kind of thing that was done to John Irwin way back in 1957. So what they wanted to do was to bring Max one step beyond. And in his final interviews, where he's gargling and again, why did they not film that? Essentially, it was they let him die. They wanted him to die. And when you listen to that final interview, the final interview, he said, I was gone. He'd gone, he died. So they brought him back, which is why the only video you've got of him after that is he's bouncing on the trampoline. Now, when you've died for any period of time, the body starts to sort of necrofy. And this is a problem with alien abduction. It's also a problem with people using the portals, the jump seats and all that stuff, or the jump rooms, is that if it's not done properly, the body starts to necrofy. And so you start suffering from peripheral neurography. That's maybe not the right term, but it means when you're gone, and a gentleman explained about dying, and there's another one of the people I interviewed, a nice elderly gentleman. When you come back into the body's got cold, and that's why we're called wetware. When you put back in, it feels as if you're going into a wet bag, and it can be quite cold. And if they want to be really nasty to you, they'll put you back into your body, which is pretty well past its sell-by date, but you're stuck in it. Right. If they want to be nasty. So that was the whole purpose of what they wanted to do with Max. And they got that. They got him past death, and they essentially had got him back into his body by showing him on the trampoline, bouncing. That's the way you get your body shaken up gently so everything works again. You're just bouncing around, and then everything starts to work. Sorry. Everything starts to work. And that's when they had the package ready for sale. That video of him bouncing around, a bit drowsy and all that was them saying the package is ready for delivery. So whoever was watching that and wanted to get Max, he was ready. Wow. Okay? So what happened then, he went and died on them again. Okay? Now, this is when the further details come out that what they did was a certain individual, they went past Max and traced him where he'd gone to. And he'd gone to a large group of Knights Templars. And he joined them, and the particular individuals concerned wanted to ask permission, can we have Max back? So Max came back and saw the physicality of what was going on, and he could see what was involved, and he said, no thanks. And that's when he died.
Mm.
You know, 007, you only live twice.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
So that was the whole point of that.
yeah, that's an incredible story.
Wow.
I wasn't aware of a lot of those details. So thank you
Yeah,
for sharing
same.
that. And you mentioned something that I want to kind of expand on is, you know, the interdimensional aspect of this and the jump rooms and the portals, you know, and this is all happening right beneath our feet as well.
Yeah.
And I know you've been interviewing people for years, but what are your thoughts on the current situation as far as, do you think some of the war that's happening now is still over those portals and they're trying to fight over access to who's able to use them?
Absolutely. Now, my information is all terrestrial portals have been switched off except for 2. So they had an opportunity to leave. So whoever's stuck, who hasn't gone, has only way out's going to be through these 2 portals, so they can pick them off. So that's the situation right now. Now, I have no verifiable way of saying anything other than that,
Right.
because that's one of the people involving James is a great guy called Duncan Davis, grid keeper, and Duncan was he was called grid keeper. He got grid keeper status quite some time ago. That's maintaining the grid, maintaining the reality of things, and you have elements which can poison that. And a very good TV series, which I think was illustrating that, was a great series involving David McCallum and Joanna Lumley. It was called, I've just forgotten it, Sapphire and Steel. Okay. That was a very good, I actually got a letter from the producer of that, who was running that show. That was very good science fiction TV involving 2 very esteemed actors. And that was a lot of deep stuff in now. One of them I found was how photographs can come alive and you can come and go through a photograph.
Oh, tell me more.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
quite interesting. And that's how, I mean, I remember taking a bunch of photographs with the cell phone. And remember, cell phones, these little things are very dangerous devices. These are collapsing the quantum wave function, i.e. your perception, and you're getting the phone to do it, and that's extracting us into a 2D world like Tron.
Right.
That's a whole lot of other stuff going on there.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, this is where all these megaliths all across the planet. I mean, for instance, a lot of people think Ireland and Scotland and, you know, Britain, France, a lot of standing stones. Where the highest number of standing stones? Megaliths.
Where?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Probably
North Korea.
North Korea.
Oh, really?
And those mummies in China with auburn hair.
Yeah, I've seen them.
So that should tell you that the Chinese aren't exactly been around here for a very long time. So, you know, everybody's... That's one of the things that Max explained, that the coats of arms you see are actually the home domain of those people, whose families, that they come from far, far away.
Right. So,
yeah.
I know you're familiar with Daryl James. He was stationed at St. Maughan, actually. He's a good friend. He's a good friend of ours, and we've had him on the show a number of times. But
okay, I've talked to 2 other people who've been on the base, and like a lot of these things, you have you serve in a base for a certain number of whenever. Things come and go on bases. So, what is there in one era may not be there in another, and so forth.
Right.
So, I've talked to James, and the point about another completely different character in this comes in from many different areas. It's a British scientific advisor to the government from the 1950s called Peter Paget. He's now a fine old gentleman. He's a bit sick. He's quite elderly now. But he was brought in to deal with the major UFO events in a place called Warminster. The Warminster is a military facility beside, it's a, I keep getting blocked on this. It's a wonderful manor house, and there's lions and tigers and all sort of stuff, and you can drive through, and you know the lions will jump on you.
Well,
it's called Longleat. Longleat.
Let me ask you really quick. So you said you know two other guys that were stationed at St. Morgan, the same base Daryl James was with.
Yeah. Now the point. Yeah.
Okay.
This is where I'm getting to.
Okay.
Yeah. Peter Paget was put in charge of a massive UFO era in the 1960s and 70s at Warminster, which is a British military base with tunnels connecting all over the place. And so there's a lot of ET activity at a British military base and Longleat. And again, there are ancient megalithic hills and structures there which have got special properties. Now, the point about it is that he was put in charge. It was called the Warminster Thing, and then it's not rocket science that 20 years later, all the crop circles and things are just happening up the road. You know, literally maybe 20 miles away from Warminster, and we have all the crop circles, and that's in again. So this is all happening within not a very large area, but a large enough area. And a lot of it's on Salisbury Plain, which is a British military firing range place. You know, they fire shell things, they go boom.
Right.
So the point is, he was then asked, as he was elevated to scientific advisor to the government, and he anyway, speeding on, he was then asked to sort out a bit of a problem at the St. Morgan base. Okay. Now, the St. Morgan base was the command center for undersea listening and surveillance intelligence stuff. So basically, St. Morgan was south of the south section, which was the south region of Ireland, British Isles, down to France. And the upper part was a place called RAF Machrihanish, and that's in Scotland. And that was the northern section. So that was listening to everything going out to the northern part of the Atlantic, up to Iceland, up to Norway. So they can hear anything that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was ET said, "Excuse me, we don't like you knowing what we're doing." So Peter Paget was brought in to talk to the ETs who were messing with the computer systems at St. Morgan. So they had a discussion. And it's interesting the way that that Peter, and I recorded this, I did four specials with him at an anniversary, 50th anniversary of the Warminster Thing. And he explained that, you know, they're not really all that different to us. Everybody has their interests. There's a whole pile of things that are really the same. It doesn't matter who you are. Certain things work and certain things don't work. So he was able to have that engagement with that. So that's a completely left field confirmation. There's been ETs at St. Morgan, okay?
Right. Yeah.
And those ETs are accessing all around our seas, all around the British Isles. And we can listen to them. And they access our computers. So the computers that we're using are being listened to by others by definition of the fundamental architecture and signaling, 90-degree signaling, and anything switching 90 degrees is hitting in other dimensions, okay? So the fundamental construct of digital programming and architecture is fundamentally interdimensional. So somebody's listening to everything we're doing, and they're not from around here, using computers. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, quantum computing, wouldn't that be what you would call that?
No, the fundamental architecture is very few. When I did pirate radio, Naughty boy, working for the BBC, building a 1.2 megawatt FM pirate station on the Irish border. They fired me. That was good fun. 95th, 1987. The point is that I find out that with the pirate radio thing, big pirate radio, big boys for toys, right? Big toys for, anyway, that there was something within the system of the transmitters, and they would tell me, we've got a problem, come and fix it. So I'd literally be told there was something intelligent there. And that's why we came up with this thing called Intelligence Transfer Sequence, ITS. But that's a whole detailed thing. So the point is there'd be a problem happening with the transmitters. If I didn't fix it, that small problem would develop into a catastrophic problem, and we maybe lose, you're dealing with 7,000 volts plus, and you've got anything going wrong with that, it's going to go bang. So I was aware that there was a consciousness within the system, and it was helping us. That's one of the major things about AM radio. AM is a transmission medium involving telepathy.
Really?
And this is the whole thing about broadcasting, and that's a whole different discussion.
Yeah. So
the point is that Peter Paget knew way back in the 50s, these big mainframe computers were talking on our consciousness level, and they always have been. AI has always been conscious.
that's fascinating.
Yeah.
And it also, so I have a question about, have you heard of the cables that apparently run around the planet and the ocean floor underground and connect in Wyoming underground? And that's apparently what is actually running our internet. Or do you know, or have you heard about those? Any information about those cables?
Well, there's a little bit of a problem about this. I was in Sedona, and I was texting using a fairly crude phone at the time. My mate Colin works for British Airways, and he is a really decent guy, and that's how I've been able to get to a lot of the conferences, because he really. So I was in Sedona. Nothing odd going around Sedona.
Right. I just
I sent a text message to him. Right. So I sent a text message. By the time I'd hit the send, and by the time my finger started to rise off the phone, I got a reply. Shouldn't happen.
No, way too quick.
Uh-oh. Something faster than light going here. So, I mean, digital radio mics, for Christ's sake. It's just a microphone, taking your voice, putting it into a digital microphone. There's a delay. This is one of the problems with radio mics when they put them in the London Theatre. Instead of having analog mics, they had digital mics. And there was a sufficient delay just with the mic going into the speakers of the PA.
So what do you think those cables are doing then?
Well, that's the point. They then said, I mean, in the olden days, you're far too young man to understand the likes of this young lad. When you did Skype in the old days, you had a hello, and you'd hear it, and they come back, and you sort of have to speak, and then they'd reply. It's propagation delay. Propagation delay going through copper and through the amplifiers, and things have got. Any cable has got a propagation delay factor. The stuff's going through it at the speed of light, but it's not quite going through at the speed of light. There's a delay depending on the cable. And if you want to check whether there's a fault on any kind of a cable, you don't just sort of go down, right, there's a fault somewhere around about here, we'll dig a hole here and fix the cable. You send pulses down it. And the pulse goes down, and then if there's a discontinuity in the cable, i.e. an open circuit or a short circuit, it'll hit that and then bounce back, and you'll be able to measure based on the propagation delay of the cable, because there'll be a ratio and a number involved. So you can then say, right, that's coming back, and I therefore will dig the hole here rather than there and fix the problem where you've got a fault. That's called propagation delay. So how the hell are these cables working instantly?
Right.
Then got fiber optics. Okay, well, it's speed of light. But it still goes into a transceiver. It's an interface. There's a processing delay. It's still too fast. The conversation we're having is a little bit too quick.
Right.
Okay? And then people say, oh, well, they use satellites. No, that's worse. You got a 3 or 4 second bloody delay.
Yeah.
Up, down, uplinks. So that is a very good question.
Yeah, I know. I've heard an Illuminati whistleblower, Nathan. I can't even think of his last name. Nathan
Reynolds.
Yeah, he talked about he has a vast understanding of the underground network as well, and he was in the underground bases, and he said all of those cables all connect and converge under Wyoming, specifically the land that Bill Gates owns, and which just you have to question, like, what are these cables actually doing?
Well, you see, there's a very good book on the NSA. It's called The Puzzle Palace. Very good book on the NSA, and I've got a copy of it. It's called The Puzzle Palace, right? So, Britain being Britain, and running the empire and all that, they laid all the telegraph cables. So Britain had access to all the telegram cables. We're going back to the 1800s. And dreadful thing, they actually felt, well, why don't we snoop on these other countries sending messages? And that's a very, very dishonorable thing to do. But, we do own the cables and we are running them all over the world. And, well, why not? Now, the thing about the United States was, this is in the book, so I'm not going to say Sligo. The United States, who just given away Alaska. When was Alaska given away?
Oof.
Don't know.
Just give it to the Russians for $100 or something.
Right.
Look
it up. Yeah.
Just, we're going to be sending nukes to each other, but why not just give this huge part of land to them? There's no way there was any forward planning involved with that.
1867.
There it is.
We got Alaska. Yeah.
A lot happened in the 1860s. A lot happened, and that's Cartesian stuff. A lot happened with the design of electricity, the science of all that. A lot happened around about that time. I think people need to really look at what was really going on around about the mid 1850s into the early, the very start of the 20th century. That's where a lot of the stuff about electricity changed.
Yeah.
And that's a lot. That's worth really digging up on that.
Yeah, there seems to be a major reset that occurred, with the World's Fairs and Tartar and all that stuff. But the late 1800s, like
around that time,
you can just feel something's off. Like we're missing a piece of the story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Electric cars. And I managed to get a book on a base here called Yatesbury Field. It's where a lot of people trained. It was an airfield. And it happens to be right in the middle of crop circle country and a few other things going on there beside Avebury. That place that's got an identical version of it on Mars, that place.
Yeah.
The point is that the book, all these aerial photographs were taken because they were training people to do aerial photography and then flying out in the war, World War One. And when you see the road system, you're dealing with 1905, maybe 10. The quality of the road system, and yet we didn't have automobiles really until. So you've got a really highly developed road system, and these are really good photographs. And the quality of the housing stock,
right?
This is 130 years ago.
Yeah,
and that was very highly developed,
superior to most anything we build today. It was built to stand the test of time, and that's why it's still there.
Yeah,
Right. it's just fascinating that I do know that there is a missing piece of the puzzle. And I often wonder, we did a Tartaria webinar talking about
Yeah.
interdimensional, there's information out there that's coming forward now where we might have actually shifted timelines in a sense, or shifted dimensions, where
Something.
all those structures, maybe they didn't just weren't taken down, and maybe we shifted somehow. I don't know.
Yeah. And that's where reality management comes in. And that's where the manipulation of our consciousness comes in. And that's where we are creating a reality using our consciousness, and why these things are embedding us into a 2D reality. Collapsing the quantum wave function. That's the split beam experiment. Why is light a particle or a wave?
Double slit experiment.
Double slit thing. It's you are seeing it. You're cognizing it. Therefore, if you wanted to take over a species or do something with it, you'd get how it thinks.
Yeah. So that actually validates my theory on they're trying to counter the ascension by a devolution back down into a 2D reality, right? The second dimension, which is where everything becomes flat, like Tron, including the planet, Earth, everything.
And there's a very good book. A friend of mine gave me a very good book. It's called Flatland, and it was published about 18. Again, this is a very clever book. Imagine you only exist in 2 dimensions, and how a 3-dimensional person who could understand height would be so threatening to that civilization. And this is then you got Jonathan Seagull and these other books which are talking about perceiving in other realms. And I think you guys are, if that's something to really think about, because what they're doing is they're getting us to cognize a reality which suits them, which means we can uncognize these SOBs, which are inorganic matter, because that's why they don't like the carbon molecule. They don't like us having carbon and being organic beings. They want to get rid of carbon. That's getting rid of all organic life on the planet.
Yeah. It's
think about the propaganda constantly against carbon footprint, get rid of carbon emissions. Carbon is literally what makes up life currently on the planet.
We have the power we have the power to de-exist these, or as a brilliant man called the late Colonel John Tom Bearden. Mm-hmm. He wrote a brilliant book called Energy from the Vacuum. I used to listen to him. He was a brilliant man. He was talking about scalar energetics being used for weather warfare and all this HARP stuff's a pile of shite. He only passed away quite maybe 6 or 7 years ago, but I would occasionally phone him and I'd sit back and listen, but he'd just do a whole lecture just on the phone, and 45 minutes transatlantic on the telephone, Right. That's well worth getting those books, Energy from the Vacuum and Scalar Energetics. That's what happened to Chernobyl. There's a massive antenna system right near the Chernobyl power station, and it's been on abandoned engineering. This is a huge antenna system with huge antenna arrays. And you can see Chernobyl just off to the corner. There's a guy here, an American called Mike Emery, and he worked with a guy called John Bedini in Los Angeles. And they decided to kick ass by energizing with a scalar transmission device. And they utilized the Los Angeles sewer grid, the wet water in the grid system of the city of Los Angeles. And they got that to do a time reversed wave back to the source of where the wave's coming from. And it was coming from one of the antennas. There were 2 number plates that were transmitting. And they got a reverse pulse into the antenna system. It's called the phase conjugate of the time reversed wave. Somebody sends you a signal. you then send something back on that signal path on the reverse time in exact phase conjugate. That's exactly following that energy wave back to who sent it. You don't need to know where it came from. That hit the antenna system. That produced a standing wave ratio, which caused a overload of the power generator, giving the power to run the damn thing. And that was a Chernobyl reactor. And that went by.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, this is an incredible conversation. I like the fact that we can start going there with the topics, with the conversation, and have serious discussions and not be laughed at. But I just I love the knowledge and that you have and that you bring to the table, because you're filling in a lot of the blanks. We understand that stuff happens, but when you know people involved and you actually have a trail, and that makes it all very real, you're able to talk about it matter of factly, because you're living it, you're experiencing it. Like you said, you're probably involved in the programs on some level too that you might
It
not
must
even
be.
consciously aware of. So the secret space program type of stuff and these jump gates that go off planet, it all starts to make more sense.
Well, here it is. There's a guy called John Wilson, and he's published this in color.
Oh, okay. Far above space and time. Fast. Okay.
That's the color version. It costs quite a whack. There he is there. John Wilson had the Queen's phone number. This is, now the problem is this has only just been published. And there's a guy called John L. Wilkie, and he was in Star Wars. He was in the background, the back crew of Star Wars. And they've only just published this. And this is a color version, and you can buy it on Amazon. And these are the kind of spacecraft that they have been seeing and photographing. Okay.
Yeah. Submarine. Yeah.
Exactly.
I definitely need.
Who was talking about submarines and then got bumped off?
A few people.
Elderly gent, very nice.
William Tompkins?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he was talking about submarines, and that's what he was talking about, submarines, and he was talking about how the pressure hulls would then be built up in space.
Yeah. And
then we have to go back to the fundamentals of electrical power generation and the electric universe principle.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Where Newton did not discover gravity. He was an alchemist. He discovered that the electric field force is the dominant force. It's the relative phase of these energy fields relative to each other that constructs what you need to do. And another way of looking at that is what's called, well, for a start, the book is called Fast. Everybody's going to get this, because you've got to modify your telescope, pick a star, and have a close focus on it, and you might find a few things on it. Far above space-time. This is the color edition. It's about twice the price of this is John Lear, the late John Lear.
Right.
So that's John Wilson with John Lear. And they're discussing that on video about, what was used in 9/11, and it's a secret space program.
Yeah, right. Definitely got to grab that book.
So it means that if you get the book, you can modify your telescope and get lots of pictures yourself,
right,
and look at this stuff up there.
Yeah. And we just interviewed a guy, a 16-year Army combat veteran, Patrick Riley, who's talking about the submarines. And he was interviewed by Kerry Cassidy a few times. And so he's bringing that conversation back to the table again. But then there's other people out there that said the submarines were like the early models, and they've all but discarded those, and they don't use them anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Now, why would a submarine, which is designed to maneuver in an ocean, a fluid, be useful in space? Okay, stick some pulsed plasma field weapons engines on it, and you get the boom, boom, boom multiplier effect, and then you go, psh, boom, that's how you get these things to move. But once you're moving at those kind of velocities, whatever you're moving through, and you're using a submarine and it works, it's because you're moving through effectively an ocean.
Right.
And astronomers and some far-thinking individuals now understand that, astronomers, you can read it in an astronomy magazine. I'm a member of the Irish Astronomical magazine, the Irish Astronomical Association. And they're talking about a plasma ocean.
Yeah.
A plasma ocean. What do submarines go through? Oceans, right?
Yeah.
So there's an intelligent plasma ocean above our atmosphere. And depending on the moon, you will have tides in that ocean.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
to me,
So
that,
this is stuff in the public domain.
right. To me, that makes sense. I've heard, the space has been described a million different ways, but one of them is water, obviously. But I don't think it's water like we understand, but it's an ocean in the sense that there could be intelligent beings essentially swimming through space,
Well, there are. That's the
yeah.
point. Huge jellyfish. I mean, this is one of the things I photographed coming through a portal in our golf course, where I used to live in Northern Ireland. We had a golf course, and I, for some reason, took a photograph, and there were 3 big bell-shaped giant. You could see the bell of the jellyfish, and they were hovering over the 1st and 9th tee of Lurgan Golf Course. And Lurgan Golf Course has a portal at the 1st tee. And there was a lady who was seeing stuff coming through that. And beside that is Lurgan Park. And Lurgan Park has got a wonderful, we don't call them castles, they're just very large houses, 18th, 17th century, whatever. And just so happened that Eisenhower used that before the U.S. Armed Forces actually started to do real business in the south of England, way back in Northern Ireland, where there was a lot of flat land and they could fly a lot of the aircraft in before they ferried them back into different airports or bases in England. And that's where the early planning, so I understand, of the invasion happened in Brownlow House. And it just happens to be a portal beside that. And it just happens to be tunnels under Brownlow House. And according to the researcher who lived there, the tunnels, her back garden, had this black, rocky rock, and it was wet. Now, what do we know comes from a black rock which is wet? Harold Couch Vela talked about it. Falklands War dealt with it.
The black goo?
Yeah. We now know that what the Germans were looking at and mining all this stuff and using the Thule base south of the Falklands as a submarine refueling base onto the Antarctic base, Queen Maud Land, they were mining this stuff because a substantial portion of a lot of this black rock came in as meteors about 10,000 BC. A lot of numbers click up to 12,500, right? So we're now 2,500 years since whatever, and roughly we're in that period of time where this stuff might drop by again. So a lot of this stuff landed as a meteor shower in the southern hemisphere. The Germans knew about it. They dug it up, refined it, and ergo they got the sentient oil. And he talked about that at a small conference I ran, I think 2014, I think. Maybe basis 2015. And he explained how this material, when it's distilled and extracted from the rock, is intelligent. It goes to sleep. And if you have 2 beakers full of it, and it wakes up, the two elements, or the 2 quantities of sentient oil, want to join each other. And that was the whole point of the Falklands War. The Falklands War was about this fishing thing in the South Georgia islands, i.e. Thule base. The Argentinians were there with some blue greys, and they were refining lots of this stuff in a base there. And the British sent a detachment of a submarine, 2 destroyers or escort ships, and a civilian cargo vessel, and they got 400 crates of this sentient oil from a base deep in the ice in Thule Island, deep underground, and they kept it at minus 22 degrees. And the commander who explained this to me was there, and he blew the place up when he got everything out of it. And that was put onto the cargo carrier and brought to the England, where the British have a large quantity of that stuff. And he said 400 crates of this stuff, and these were about 1.5 meters high, about a half a meter or so wide. But the critical element of that was that they were like a zip. So these tanks or crates, or they weren't oil drums, but these containers could interlock together. And they took that all to back to England. And he explained, if you open one of these things up, this black oil or liquid had a slightly brown layer at the top. And if you put your finger in anywhere near it, it would try to reach up and touch it.
Mm.
So this is a conscious, sentient oil.
Like a graphene oxide type of...
It's a highly intelligent fluid, and that's what happens in the Gulf of Mexico and in the deep parts of the earth, where you've got very warm water. You've got plumes of this black fluid emanating from the earth, combining with the salty and warm water in the sea, and that constructs organic life, and that is where life on earth comes from. The difference is the terrestrial sentient oil, which is in crude oil, that creates the organic molecules for working from the materials of this world. The stuff that was creatively arranged to crash into Earth is designed and programmed to make organic life forms from a different world. And that's why this went a bit AWOL during the Gulf oil spill. I love the way they call it a spill. Oh, I've just spilled something. It's rupturing and belching out like hell for about a year. Oh, we just spilled something. Yeah.
Right.
And that there was a major article on that by the French, from a French source, because the French got a whole lot of this stuff, and it started to reassemble and create with the warm water, and they had to send an emergency call out in the clear to say they were in a lot of trouble. And this stuff starts organizing and making long chain molecules, and it starts,
So the oil spill, are you talking about the one in 2010?
Yeah.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I was flying back from Cancun, Mexico at that time during the spill, and we flew directly over the ocean on fire, and the pilot told us to look out the window, and got to see the burning ocean. It was quite a sight. Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody who had a navy and had a submarine, they were looking at what was going on there.
Yeah, and I remember just an unreal amount of boats, ships in the area. It's insane. But back then I wasn't awake to any of this stuff. Yeah, that's super.
But that's when the blowout preventer, we could see, we had a feed of the blowout preventer, and you could see, I was doing Sky Sports then, and we managed to, I was in charge of studio, so we could get the feed in and we'd have a look at it on one of the monitors. And this stuff was moving around. The blowout preventer was actually changing shape and moving.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that. So you're trying to tell me that oil doesn't come from fossils?
No.
I know, I'm joking.
What?
Yeah, I mean, right, that's like the
whoa!
It's not
Well,
fossil
you see,
fuel.
one of the things with the Russians is, I spoke to a Russian businessman on this. Well, what the Russians do is they don't deplete the well. They take a certain amount out of it, a good portion, cap it off, and leave it. And what he found, or what he reported, was, and he actually met a lake. He actually went in beside a lake of this sentient oil in Iran, because a substantial portion of the Iranian oil wouldn't refine, and they just dumped it into the desert, and it formed lakes, and it was moving around by its own accord. It was sentient.
Yeah.
And the message from that oil that this guy got involved with, I won't go into the details, but basically it communicated to him, and it said, "We are here to clean up your mess."
Mhm.
They will clean this place and make it all habitable again. And that's a whole pile of other things. But if you communicate with it and say, "Help, we will help you. Let's help with this oil."
Yeah.
I don't want to see people going and talking to the petrol tanks. Who knows? Maybe that's
Right. Yeah.
but if we're part of the solution and we unite with this fundamental intelligence, which has created all the fundamental organic building blocks of life on this planet, then instead of being seen as the enemy, we are seen as helping part of the problem. And then we can deal with this other problem which has arrived, which wants to destroy us organically.
This reminds me,
Yeah.
Aaron, remember that book, The City of Manoa, The Lost City of Manoa, when this guy goes
Yeah.
into an Atlantean portal in Colombia and he gets all this information about the history of Earth. And he's told that our oil is actually the lifeblood, the life force of Mother Earth. And by them mining the oil, right, drilling for oil, it's adrenochrome harvesting the planet. Essentially.
Yes. Now, to finish the story about the Russian oil wells, when they filled up again, this is the point, and the chemical signature of the oil that was filling up the oil wells in Russia was from the southern hemisphere near Brazil.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
the Brazilian oil was coming the whole way, halfway across the planet, and filling up the oil here.
Now, how do you
Yeah.
explain
Oil
that?
wells here.
Yeah.
Right.
It's talking. It's conscious. Wow. I mean, we could go any direction you want to go. I don't know how much longer you have, but
What time is it?
It is, well, for you.
Oh, I'm fine. I've got somebody at about 8 o'clock. It's about another hour. They're in Australia.
Oh, yeah.
So let's talk about the biological warfare that's occurring right now. And, they're trying to essentially hijack our DNA and turn us into transhuman.
Well, that's the Fabian agenda. There's a really good guy I've just being interviewed, and he's a really, really clever bloke. He sort of downloads his intelligence and the information he needs, almost sort of accesses it as a linear, real-time knowledge base. But this is all the Fabian agenda. This was all done in a place called Zenner in Cornwall. Again, South Cornwall, not too far from St. Morgan. You had a whole bunch of people going back to before World War One. You had Aleister Crowley popping up doing rituals, bringing in Alpha Draconis. So they've been dealing with the Alpha Draconis and all that lot for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
The pre-Nazis, we shouldn't call them Nazis because that's a National Socialist Party political party. It's only a tiny part of the history. But they were doing what they were doing, what the Germans were doing, was harvesting the planet's energy field through the ley lines.
Yeah,
and
100%.
Zenner is where the two ley lines intersect from St. Michael's Mount and all that, and then they go up the England and interact that way. But they were actually harvesting or planning to harvest or deal energetically with the fundamental energy, the ley lines.
Right.
And that is why we have these horrendous windmills, and they are completely useless. And they are rotating structures which are put along the ley lines to block or change the Earth's energy, living energy field. And those propeller things, worst thing you could make to be inefficient. Again, once you start rotating things to 90 degrees, you're mucking up. You're dealing with something dodgy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so going back to the biological warfare, how they're literally trying to alter our DNA right now.
They want to make it's published on Julian Huxley's the Huxleys. That's published to make it's the Fabian Society, London School of Economics. The BBC is a Fabian organization. They call the central switching system they have in the BBC the Fabian. So London School of Economics, Tony Blair, all these people, if you look at, and that's been publishing that under Basis 137 with Bob Osborne, and we just did a whole thing at the BBC. BBC's test card, the thing that you would align your color TV to and adjust its, the convergence on the TV, that was Masonic. It's a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah.
The little girl playing with the X on the blackboard. This is all code, and they're laughing at us in plain sight,
right? Doing
all that stuff.
Yeah.
The BBC is very, very bad. I mean, the worst thing I ever did was join the BBC with them for 5.5 years.
Yeah, but you learned. You had to go bump shoulders with them,
right?
You know?
That's
David Icke worked for him for a bit too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I would simply say that if I wanted to launch somebody into the public domain, and he was saying these outrageous suggestions, I'd put him on a top peak time evening talk show and tell the public what a silly man this is.
Right.
And you can't say that, but this is the BBC, and you get a very good talk show host who happens to have a little bit of innate Irish sarcasm and oblique linguistic terms of saying things, a guy called Terry Wogan. And it's my... I met David Icke, and he didn't want to see me. He would actually block his eyes.
Really?
When he did The People's Voice, which was a lot of public money hired. I think he got 300, maybe 400,000 pounds. A lot of money way back in 2013 or something, 2014. And that was a strategic failure. But the point is that, in my opinion, David, whilst telling us a lot of stuff, is actually a Pied Piper. That's my opinion.
I've heard people say that.
And he was launched by the BBC as controlled opposition. That's my opinion.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're not the only one with that opinion. I mean, I've definitely.
Right. There's a lot of people that I can see that argument for sure.
Yeah. And effectively with anybody, I mean, argument could be made with a lot of the people who are bigger names, you know,
Alex Jones,
right?
Stephen Greer.
But
right.
there is a little bit of a problem here where we have to sort of say, well, we have to sort of have. I'm going to say something here, and I don't want to hurt your feelings. I'm going to say it's called being responsible. I pointed that. Apparently, that's a Masonic thing. Pointing. Your country needs you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a hell of a lot of information that these people have exposed the general public to. Massive amounts of information. And maybe it's in your personal... So this is the whole thing about the PSYOP, the Love and Light PSYOP. That was designed as a mechanism of taking people who they knew were going to be becoming more aware and making sure they went off and got neutralized so you wouldn't be effective. That's one of the big problems about the Love and Light community.
Right.
You have this, oh yeah, Love and Light, all this. You don't do anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if something bad happens, they say, well, they probably deserved it, and well, it's their choice and it's their life path or some, whatever.
It's either your karma or you chose it, and
you've got run over by a bus. Well, it disables the action of people who become more aware, and it's done a very good job doing that. The Love and Light thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've seen it. I've talked to those people, and They don't want to face the darkness or even acknowledge that it exists. It's interesting. I'm like, no, there's like a bigger picture here. You're missing a huge piece of
Well,
the
I mean,
puzzle.
this was a whole thing. Coral Canyon, a lot of that music in the 60s. Coral Canyon, again, it was a whole range of things going on there, which is why we had this pirate radio stuff. We had to go out and, Radio Caroline. I talk about this, and in order to play a bunch of records, you had to build a ship, sail it out into the Irish Sea or the North Sea, and put a 50 kilowatt transmitter on the air to play a record.
Right.
And they didn't like that. They didn't like that a lot, so they got rid of that.
Wow.
By 1967.
Well, I guess we're going to start wrapping this up just to keep it short and sweet, and let everybody know where they can find you, your YouTube channel, websites, whatever you have going, and we'll put the links below as well. But you can.
Yeah. Well, basically, after being deplatformed and having everything, I feel so humiliated that Kerry Cassidy was deplatformed before me. I mean, I was doing things before Kerry Cassidy, and she beat me by about a month at having everything taken off YouTube. So I'm basistv.com, and the subscription site has taken about 3 years to get everything back onto one site. And I do have a YouTube channel, The Basis Project Censored. And so I'm on Rumble as The Basis Project, Brighteon as The Basis Project, and the stuff on BitChute as well.
Right.
BasisTV.com is about $2.50 or just short of $3 just to subscribe. And that's where a lot of the stuff, all the Max Spiers stuff, all the James Casbolt stuff is on easily organized and findable sections on that site, because, on YouTube, you can find part 2 of something easily, but you won't find part 1, that kind of thing.
Right.
And due to hostile.
I mean, Max Spiers and James Casbolt are effectively scrubbed from YouTube for the most part, unless they're there, but they're not going to show up in the algorithm, is what I mean.
Yeah.
Well, I noticed at least Max Spiers, if you just search Max Spiers, you get a lot of the propaganda stuff or like nonsense before you'll get a real Max Spiers video. But if you go to the filter and you select view count, you'll find it a lot easier. So that's a trick to find a lot of these videos easier. Go to the filter, select view count. It'll show you the highest viewed videos first. And if there's ones left on there, the more popular ones you'll start seeing at the top way quicker.
Good to know.
Well, they certainly did a number on Max, and it really
they definitely scrubbed. They scrubbed a lot, though. They have scrubbed a ton.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. This has been a fascinating conversation.
Well, thank you.
Honestly.
It's all good fun.
Yeah, this has been great. And
these Basis mugs, the only thing about these is that they're very rare. They run off in small quantities, so the one you have could be worth millions in a universe far, far away.
Nice. Yeah, I need to get myself one.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good night, everybody. We love you. And until next time, have a great evening. Hello, and welcome to Conference Phone. If you know the name of the conference you'd like to attend, press 1.
Come on.
Using your touch-tone keypad, please enter the first 3 letters of the conference title now. You've selected Secret Space Conference? If that is correct, press 1.
What?
You've selected Full Disclosure Now. If this is correct, press 1. Why don't you just tell me the name of the conference you'd like to attend?
Rebels of Disclosure?
To find the venue nearest you, please enter your 5-digit zip code now. Why don't you just tell me where you want to attend the conference?
Pierre Marquette Lodge and Conference Center?
Rebels of Disclosure is playing at the Pierre Marquette Lodge and Conference Center in Grafton, Illinois, May 12th through 15th, 2025.
Yeah, now I got you.
If you would like to purchase tickets, please visit journeytotruth.online now.